Greetings and welcome. We are in Senior English A, and our objective now is to continue with our conversation on King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and we're going to be on page 171 and beyond as we look at this text, Sir Gawain the Green Knight. Actually, flip back one page. I just want to make sure that you are reminded as you prepare for the exam. Do you see this intel on 168? Boy, oh boy, would I write that down if it was me. And I would make sure that I, for example, know the stuff that's listed here, for example, under literary analysis, so that you know that term that's in bold there, medieval romance. And you would want to go down to vocabulary. Do you see those 6 words that are there? You know those words are going to end up on the exam. I can absolutely guarantee you. So look at the words real quickly. And if you have any sense of what those words are all about, great. But if not, then obviously you might want to write them down. All right, here we go. Sir Gawain the Green Knight. We're working at level 1. We're doing a close reading, but I'm going to give you an assignment. I want you to write this down. We have already identified chivalry as 3 things. Write them down. Again, the word chivalry, make sure you know how to spell and everything, and then we're going to write down what we said it was. 3 elements. 1, do you remember? We always say chivalry relates to courage. 2, chivalry relates to honor, respect, doing your duty. 3, and by the way, a part of that is taking care of your king, protecting your king. 3, strength. Strength. The ability to perform great feats of strength. Part of it, right? As you read Sir Gawain the Green Knight, every time one of those 3 elements is mentioned, just write it down at level 1. That will help you to be able to write a paper if you have to on chivalry. All right? Miss Laird, the floor is yours.
Okay. Everybody on 171.
The scene begins at the start of a New Year's Eve feast at King Arthur's court in Camelot. Before anyone has started eating, the festivities are interrupted by an immense green knight who suddenly appears at the hall door. The knight rides a green horse and is armed with a gigantic axe.
Ready, folks?
This horseman hurtles in, and the hall enters, riding to the high dais, recked he no danger. Not a greeting he gave as the guests he o'erlooked, nor wasted his words, but, "Where is," he said, "the captain of this crowd? Keenly I wish to see that sire with sight, and to himself same I say." He swaggered all about to scan the host so gay. He halted as if in doubt, who in that hall held sway. There were stares on all sides as the stranger spoke, for much did they marvel what it might mean that a horseman and a horse should have such a hue, grow green as the grass, and greener it seemed, than green fused on gold, more glorious by far. All the onlookers eyed him and edged nearer, and awaited in wonder what he would do. For many sights had they seen, but such a one never. So that phantom and fairy the folk there deemed it. Therefore chary of answer was many a champion bold. And stunned at his strong words, stone still they sat, in a swooning silence in the stately hall. As all were slipped into sleep, so slackened their speech apace. Not all, I think, for dread, but some of courteous grace, let him, who was their head, be spokesman in that place.
Okay, really quickly. A green knight has come into the court at Camelot. And he's challenged anyone there to strike his bare neck with an axe. But he gets to return the blow after a year and a day. So that's what's going on right now. A green knight. He's got green armor. He gives off this kind of greenish glow. So do you think that this is some natural phenomena going on, or do you think there might be some supernatural going on?
He's possessed.
He's possessed. Anyhow, so that's what's going on. That was the Green Knight's challenge.
Then Arthur, before the high dais that entrance beholds, and hailed him, as behooved, for he had no fear, and said, "Fellow, in faith you have found fair welcome. The head of this hostelry, Arthur, am I? Leap lightly down and linger, I pray, and the tale of your intent you shall tell us after." "Nay, so help me," said the other, "he that on high sits. To tarry here any time, 'twas not mine errand, but as the praise of you, prince, is puffed up so high, and your court and your company are counted the best, stoutest under steel gear on steeds to ride, worthiest of their works the wide world over, and peerless to prove in passages of arms, and courtesy here is carried to its height, and so at this season I have sought you out. You may be certain by the branch that I bear in hand that I pass here in peace, and would part friends. For had I come to this court on combat bent, I have a hauberk at home, and a helm beside, a shield and a sharp spear shining bright, and other weapons to wield, I ween well to boot. But as I willed no war, I wore no metal. But if you be so bold, as all men believe, you will graciously grant the game that I ask by right." Arthur answer gave, and said, "Sir courteous knight, if contest here you crave, you shall not fail to fight."
So the Green Knight says, your court is world known for all of the honor and good things that they do, and so I've sought them out on purpose. I came here on purpose because I knew that my challenge would be met, because nobody could turn me down. And King Arthur says, okay, a challenge you want, a challenge you get. As a part of chivalry, do you think his knights are going to let him accept the challenge? Somebody will step in probably as his second. Have you guys ever heard of that? Okay, so we are at the top of 173.
"Nay, to fight in good faith is far from my thought. There are about on these benches but beardless children. Were I here in full arms on a haughty steed, for measured against mine their might is puny, and so I call in this court for a Christmas game. For 'tis Yule and New Year, and many young bloods about. If any in this house such hardihood claims, be so bold in his blood, his brain so wild, as stoutly to strike one stroke for another, I shall give him as my gift this gisarm noble, this axe that is heavy enough to handle as he likes, and I shall bide the first blow, as bare as I sit. If there be one so wilful my words to essay, let him leap hither lightly, lay hold of this weapon. I quit claim it forever, keep it as his own, and I shall stand him a stroke, steady on this floor. So you grant me the guerdon to give him another sans blame. In a 12-month and a day, he shall have of me the same. Now be it seen straightway, who dares take up the game?"
Okay, so once again, there's the challenge. He says anyone who can strike his bare neck with the axe. He doesn't say how hard, how much, but he said that in here he will return that. So you have to keep in mind exactly what whoever takes up the challenge might actually do to the knight. So we are in the middle of 173.
If he astonished them at first, stiller were then all that household in hall, the high and the low. The stranger on his green steed stirred in the saddle, and roisterously his red eyes he rolled all about, bent his bristling brows that were bright green, wagged his beard as he watched who would arise. When the court kept its counsel, he coughed aloud, and cleared his throat coolly, the clearer to speak. "What is this Arthur's house?" said that horseman then, "whose fame is so fair in far realms and wide? Where is now your arrogance and your awesome deeds, your valor and your victories and your vaunting words? Now are the revel and renown of the round table overwhelmed with a word of one man's speech, for all cower and quake and no cut felt."
What is he calling him? calling them chickens. Nobody wants to take up his offer. He's calling them all cowards.
With this, he laughed so loud that the Lord grieved. The blood for sheer shame shot to his face and pride. With rage his face flushed red, and so did all beside. Then the king, as bold man bred toward the stranger, took a stride, and said, Sir, now we see you will say but folly, which whoso has sought it suits that he find. No guest here is aghast of your great words. Give to me your gizarm in God's own name, and the boon you have begged shall straight be granted. He leaps to him lightly, lays hold of his weapon. The green fellow on foot fiercely alights. Now has Arthur his axe and the haft grips, and sternly stirs it about, on striking bent. The stranger before him stood there erect, higher than any in the house by a head and more. With stern look as he stood, he stroked his beard, and with undaunted countenance drew down his coat. No more moved nor dismayed for his mighty dints than any bold man on bench had brought him a drink of wine. Gawain by Guinevere toward the king doth now incline. I beseech before all here that this melee may be mine.
So once again, Arthur is the one who takes up, it's honorable, he's the one who is going to go into battle. So he takes the axe and he's about to cut the Green Knight's neck, and Gawain steps up and says, please let this be, it would be my honor to do this for you. So that's where we're at right now on 174.
Would you grant me the grace, said Gawain to the king, to be gone from this bench and stand by you there, if I without discourtesy might quit this board? And if my liege lady misliked it not, I would come to your council before your court noble, for I find it not fit, as in faith it is known, when such a boon is begged before all these knights, though you be tempted thereto to take it on yourself, while so bold men about upon benches sit, that no host under heaven is hardier of will, nor better brothers in arms where battle is joined. I am the weakest, well I know, and of wit feeblest, and the loss of my life would be least of any. That I have you for uncle is my only praise. My body but for your blood is barren of worth, and for that this folly befits not a king, and 'tis I that have asked it. It ought to be mine, and if my claim be not comely, let all this court judge in sight. The court assays the claim, and in council all unite, to give Gawain the game, and release the king outright.
Okay, I don't see a lot of you guys writing, just so you know. You might want to be putting some of this down in your notes. Mr. Moon said this part exactly. So, what did Gawain just say? Anybody? Once again, he's asking permission, saying that it would be a great honor to take the place of the king. If the Queen Guinevere, gives her approval to it, he will step in. And then the court democratically agrees that Gawain should be the one to confront the Green Knight.
What elements of chivalry is this involving? Go ahead, write them down real quickly. Does that involve any courage? It does. Does that involve any sense of respect or honor?
Yes.
It does. Does that involve any issues of strength?
Yes.
Swinging an axe obviously involves some strength, right? Good.
So you guys might want to write down the page, 174 lines 117 through 134, if you're going to be looking for a quote. 117 through 134, you can look in there for your quote. 134.
Then the king called the knight to come to his side, and he rose up readily and reached him with speed, bows low to his lord, lays hold of the weapon, and he releases it lightly, and lifts up his hand, and gives him God's blessing, and graciously prays that his heart and his hand may be hardy both. Keep, cousin, said the king, what you cut with this day. And if you rule it aright, then readily I know you shall stand the stroke it will strike after. Gawain goes to the guest with his arm in hand, and boldly he bides there, abashed not a whit. Then hails he Sir Gawain, the horseman in green. Recount we our contract ere you come further. First, I ask and adjure you how you are called, that you tell me true, so that trust it I may. In good faith, said the good knight, Gawain am I, whose buffet befalls you. Whate'er betide after, and at this time 12 month take from you another with what weapon you will, and with no man else alive. The other nods assent. Sir Gawain, as I may thrive, I am wondrous well content that you this dint shall drive.
So, Gawain picks up the axe, walks over to the Green Knight, and the Green Knight says, in all truthfulness, I want to know your name. Who are you that you've taken up my challenge? And he introduces himself as Gawain, and he says that he will fulfill the requirements. What do you think Gawain's going to do? Anybody want to foreshadow a little bit? Do you think he's just going to give him a little nick on the neck? Do you think he's going to take his head off? What? Anybody? Do you think he's going to do what? Try to kill him. Okay, let's see what happens. We're on 175.
Sir Gawain, said the Green Knight, by God I rejoice that your fist shall fetch this favour I seek. And you have readily rehearsed, and in right terms, each clause of my covenant with the king your lord. Say that you shall assure me, sir, upon oath, that you shall seek me yourself, wheresoever you deem my lodgings may lie, and look for such wages as you have offered me here before all this host. What is the way there, said Gawain. Where do you dwell? I never heard of your house by him that made me. Nor I know you not, knight, your name nor your court. But tell me truly thereof, and teach me your name, and I shall fare forth to find you, so far as I may. And this I say in good certain, and swear upon oath. That is enough in New Year, you need say no more, said the knight in the green to Gawain the noble. If I tell you true, when I have taken your knock, and if you handily have hit, you shall hear straightway of my house and my home and my own name. Then follow in my footsteps by faithful accord. And if I spend no speech, you shall speed the better. You can feast with your friends, nor further trace my tracks. Now hold your grim tool steady, and show us how it hacks. Gladly, sir, all ready, says Gawain. He strokes the axe.
So the Green Knight says to Gawain, okay, in a year, you have to fulfill the contract. You have to come and find me. You have to come find me where I live, and then I get to do whatever it is you're going to do to me. And he says, okay. Sounds like a deal. And he tells him, after you've done giving me the nick on my neck or whatever you're going to do, I'll tell you where I live. I'm going to okay, because I've never heard of you. I don't know what court you came from. I don't know who your king is. What? Okay. So we are on 176.
The Green Knight upon ground girds him with care, bows a bit with his head, and bares his flesh. His long lovely locks he laid over his crown. Let the naked nape for the need be shown. Gawain grips to his axe, and gathers it aloft, the left foot on the floor before him he set, brought it down deftly upon the bare neck, that the shock of the sharp blow shivered the bones, and cut the flesh cleanly, and clove it in twain, that the blade of bright steel bit into the ground, the head was hewn off, and fell to the floor. Many found it at their feet as forth it rode. The blood gushed from the body, bright on the green, yet fell not the fellow, nor faltered a whit. But stoutly he starts forth upon stiff shanks, and as all stood staring, he stretched forth his hand, laid hold of his head, and heaved it aloft.
Huh.
Then goes to the green steed, grasps the bridle, steps into the stirrup, bestrides his mount, and his head by the hair in his hand holds, and as steady he sits in the stately saddle as he had met with no mishap, nor missing were his head. His bulk about he hailed, that fearsome body that bled. There were many in the court that quailed before all his say was said.
Okay, so Gawain chops off his head and it rolls in front of everybody, but the body's still standing. And his body walks over, picks up the head by the hair, gets on his horse, so he's holding his head like this. And the court's kind of going like, what? He hasn't left yet.
For the head in his hand he holds right up. Toward the first on the dais directs he the face. And it lifted up its lids and looked with wide eyes, and said as much with its mouth as now you may hear. Sir Gawain, forget not to go as agreed, and cease not to seek till me, sir, you find, as you promised in the presence of these proud knights. To the Green Chapel come, I charge you, to take such a dint as you have dealt. You have well deserved that your neck should have a knock on New Year's morn. The Knight of the Green Chapel I am well known to many, wherefore you cannot fail to find me at last. Therefore come, or be counted a recreant knight. With a roisterous rush, he flings round the reins, hurtles out at the hall door, his head in his hand, that the flint fire flew from the flashing hooves. Which way he went, not one of them knew, nor whence he was come in the wide world so fair. The king and Gawain gay make a game of the Green Knight there, yet all who saw it say 'twas a wonder past compare.
So holding up his head, the knight talks. He says, don't forget your promise. You have to come find me in a year and I get to return what you just did to me. And he said, I'm from the Green Chapel. I'm well known. If you ask around, you'll find me. If you don't live up to your word, then everybody will think that you are dishonorable and a coward because you promised in front of the entire court here at Camelot. So, the Green Knight is doing what?
Scamming him.
Well, he kind of scammed him, yeah, but he's challenging him to whether or not he is being chivalric or not. So if Gawain wants to keep up his reputation as a good knight, he has to go through with it, right? Okay, let's keep going.
Though high-born Arthur at heart had wonder, he let no sign be seen, but said aloud to the comely queen with courteous speech, Dear dame, on this day dismay you no whit. Such crafts are becoming at Christmas-tide, laughing at interludes, light songs and mirth, amid dancing of damsels with doting knights. Nevertheless, of my meat now let me partake, for I have met with a marvel I may not deny. He glanced at Sir Gawain, and gaily he said, Now, sir, hang up your axe. That has hewn enough. And over the high dais it was hung on the wall, that men in amazement might on it look, and tell in true terms the tale of the world. Then they turned toward the table, those two together, the good king and Gawain, and made great feast, with all dainties double, dishes rare, with all manner of meat and minstrelsy both. Such happiness wholly had they that day in hold. Now take care, Sir Gawain, that your courage wax not cold, when you must turn again to your enterprise untold.
Okay, before we go on the top of 178, so after the knight leaves, they hang up the axe. It's a big giant axe as a reminder of the fantastic thing that they just saw. And then what? Arthur and Gawain just go back to having their merry old way. King Arthur's like, you know, weird stuff happens around this time of year anyway. Okay, so we're at the top of 1 second.
The following November, Sir Gawain sets out to fulfill his promise to the Green Knight. For weeks he travels alone through the cold, threatening woods of North Wales. Then, after he prays for shelter, he comes upon a wondrous castle on Christmas Eve, where he is greeted warmly by the lord of the castle and his lady. Sir Gawain inquires about the location of the Green Chapel, and the lord assures him that it is nearby, and promises to provide him with a guide to lead him there on New Year's Day. Before the lord and Sir Gawain retire for the night, they agree to exchange whatever they receive during the next 3 days. Sir Gawain keeps his pledge for the first 2 days, but on the 3rd day he does not give the lord the magic green girdle that the lady gives him, because she promises that the girdle will protect him from any harm. The next day, Gawain sets out for the Green Chapel. His guide urges him not to proceed, but Gawain refuses to take this advice. He feels that it would be dishonorable not to fulfill his pledge. He is determined to accept his fate. However, he does wear the magic green girdle that the lady had given him.
Did anybody catch what's going on there? So it's a year later. He's going to meet up with the Green Knight, and he stays at the Lord and Lady's house at Green Chapel. The lady of the house gives him a green girdle that she says will protect him in the fight. And Gawain's like, oh, I don't want to use it. That's kind of cheating. But in the end, he does decide that he's going to wear that green girdle to protect himself in the battle against the Green Knight. Because in truth, was the Green Knight, was he tricking him? Do you think he was being honest from the beginning?
No.
So that may be Gawain's justification for also using supernatural means, right?
He puts his heels to his horse and picks up the path. Goes in beside a grove where the ground is steep, rides down the rough slope right to the valley. And then he looked a little about him. The landscape was wild, and not a soul to be seen, nor sign of a dwelling, but high banks on either hand hemmed it about. With many a ragged rock and rough-hewn crag, the skies seemed scored by the scowling peaks. Then he halted his horse and moved there a space, and sought on every side for a sight of the chapel. But no such place appeared, which puzzled him sore. Yet he saw some way off what seemed like a mound, a hillock high and broad, hard by the water, where the stream fell in foam down the face of the steep, and bubbled as if it boiled on its bed below. The knight urges his horse and heads for the knoll, leaps lightly to earth, loops well the rein of his steed to a stout branch, and stations him there. He strides straight to the mound, and strolls all about, much wondering what it was, but no whit the wiser. It had a hole at one end, and on either side, and was covered with coarse grass in clumps all without, and hollow all within, like some old cave, or a crevice of an old crag he could not discern aright. Can this be the chapel green? Alack, said there, here might the devil himself be seen, saying matins at black midnight. Now by heaven, said he, it is bleak hereabouts. This prayer house is hideous, half covered with grass. Well may the grim man mantled in green hold here his orisons in hell's own style. Now I feel it is the fiend in my 5 wits that has tempted me to this tryst to take my life. This is a chapel of mischance. May the mischief take it. As accursed a country church as I came upon ever. With his helm on his head, his lance in his hand, he stalks toward the steep wall of that strange house. Then he heard on the hill, behind a hard rock, beyond the brook, from the bank, a most barbarous din. Lord, it clattered, and the cliff fit to cleave it in two, as one upon a grindstone ground a great scythe. Lord, it whirred like a mill wheel whirling about. Lord, it echoed loud and long lamentable to hear. Then, by heaven, said the bold knight, that business up there is arranged for my arrival, or else I am much misled. Let God work on me, all hope of help is fled. Forfeit my life may be, but noise I do not dread.
So Gawain rides on, he's looking for the Green Knight, and he comes upon a chapel, and he comments that if only the devil would disguise such a meeting in where? A place of a church, a chapel, right? And then he says, as one upon a grindstone ground a great scythe. Do you know what that is? Scythe, sorry. What is it? When you think of a scythe, what do you think of?
Death.
Right. So what is he's pretty sure he's approaching his own death at this point, correct?
Then he listened no longer, but loudly he called, Who has power in this place high parley to hold? For none greets Sir Gawain, or give him good day. If any would a word with him, let him walk forth and speak now or never to speed his affairs. Abide, said one on the bank above over his head. And what I promised you once shall straightway be given. Yet he stayed not his grindstone, nor stinted its noise, but worked a while at his whetting before he would rest. And then he comes around a crack from a cave in the rocks, hurtling out of hiding with a hateful weapon, a Danish axe, devised for that day's deed, with a broad blade and bright, bent in a curve, filed to a fine edge, 4 feet it measured by the length of the lace that was looped round the haft. And in form as at first, the fellow all green, his lordly face and his legs, his locks and his beard, save that firm upon 2 feet forward he strides, sets a hand on the axe head, the haft to the earth. When he came to the cold stream, and cared not to wade, he vaults over on his axe and advances amain, on a broad bank of snow overbearing and brisk of mood. Little did the knight incline, when face to face they stood. Said the other man, Friend mine, it seems your word holds good.
So Gawain comes up and he challenges him. He says, okay, let's get this over with. And the Green Knight just sits there and he's sharpening his weapon. And this is where we are right now. And he says, oh good, you decided you were going to keep the appointment. How honorable.
Okay, guys, we're going to come back tomorrow. You might want to mark a spot there in your annotations to know where we'll come back tomorrow. We'll finish with Green Knight tomorrow then. We'll finish, and we'll get on then with the Arthur the Mallory text. Thank you.